Boa tarde, São Paulo. My name is Walter Katz, and I have been in this business a very long time. It's now been about 33 years, but I was actually born in this business, into this business. My father, Lawrence Katz, has been a member of MDRT for over 65 years. In February, he should turn 90 years old, and he is still working. And he still tells me I do not work hard enough. It's a great pleasure to be back in São Paulo. Listening to Caio talk about MDRT really warms my heart because I am also very passionate about MDRT. I could talk about MDRT for this whole time to encourage you to attend the meeting. It's not just about qualifying. When I went into this business, the first thing my father told me to do was qualify and attend MDRT. And today, I can tell you I have friends from around the world. I was just sharing with Ross last night, whether it's Helen in Greece, or John in Ireland, or Caio in Brazil. And now after this meeting, there's Beto and Francisco in Panama, and there's everybody else. So I encourage you, not only qualify, but then join and attend. It's not just the relationships, it's the ideas that you get. It's the ability to take your business to another level. And for that, I've gone for many, many years and been grateful that I do. It was good that my father was in this business, but you know what? I still have to sell. I still have to consult. He does not do that for me. So how do you do that? How do you get together? And he told me long ago, let's catch up. He told me long ago, Walter, don't talk to the seed if you can talk to the tree. What does that mean? So he taught me, Walter, talk to their parents. Talk to the people that are old enough that have problems, that have money, and then you can start to be successful. At that time, they did not get fancy. They didn't call it target marketing, but that's what he was teaching me 30 years ago. How to get names. Names, names, names. I believe the president of MDRT said, it's hard to get names. It's hard to prospect. Where do you get the names? What do you do? Look up names in the phone book, cold call, knock on doors, use the internet to search and do search optimization. There's all kinds of ways to try to find people to sell. So oftentimes, my biggest obstacle has been me. If people would just listen to me, if people would do as I suggest that they do, it would be easy. But through MDRT, I've actually gotten the resources, made the connections, and found people that help me find ways to get in front of people. And when it was asked of me how to find names, because we all have the process. Get the names. Then what? Contact them. Get appointments. What do you do after you get the appointment? Do fact-finding. And then close the deal. Which one's the hardest? Which one's the most important? It depends on you. It depends where you are on your career. So I'm going to ask you a quiz. Just close your eyes for a minute. And think, if I ask you, who is your target market? Think about that for just a second. If you answered with a specific list that you know is your target market, raise your hand. So just a few of you. If you said you're a generalist, that you'll talk to everybody, anybody, even here, this says our target audience is males and females, age 0 and up. Is that you? Will you talk to anybody? If they breathe on the mirror and there's fog, is that a prospect? If you say you're a generalist and you will talk to everybody, then I just say, hold on for the rest of this part of the presentation, and then maybe, just maybe, you'll raise your hand later. There's so many ways to be successful in this business. I keep forgetting this thing. No matter your personality, your perceived strengths. There's Beto who can run across and energize just about anybody. Was that fantastic? There's people like me. I'm an introvert. I'm not so outgoing. I like technical. But I have learned that the knowledge is great. How do you simplify? So I like pictures. I like stories. Marketing. What is it? Given this current state of Brazil, and you're not alone, the world has chaos. The financial market's always going. In the United States, the Tax Reform Act this year, there's always change. How do you adapt to the change? When there's changes, it's just a lot easier to have a market and marketing and target marketing. Why is that? No one can afford to target everybody. The efficiency that you can get when you say, well, I'll target anyone who's interested in my services, that how do you advertise if you want to advertise to everybody? So we want to narrow it down. Does that mean I only talk to people in my target market? Of course not. I want to help everybody. But the focus, when I want to ask for a referral, I ask for some very specific people that I want to meet. I'm able to describe who those people are and hopefully be good enough to be able to listen to their needs and not being a solution looking for the problem. You hear that? Listen to needs. You're not the solution looking for the problem. Oftentimes I'm talking to younger people in this business or with less experience, and they'll say, hey, I'm going out to sell a life insurance policy. And I'll say, oh, to whom? And they say, well, I don't know. This is my first appointment with them. Well, then how do you know? Until you start to get the relationship, and we've heard a lot about this today, it's the relationship. How do you know what's important? What do we do? What do you do for a living? I sell money. When people ask me, what do I do for a living? I sell money. What do you mean? Well, if somebody dies prematurely, what do you need? Money. If you get sick or hurt, what do you need? Money. If you want to retire and not have to work, you might want to choose to work. What do you need? Money. So what do we do for a living? We make that money possible for all those events. So it's the perfect story when you heard JP talk about all of the needs through the course of his life. Incredible. And guess what he learned? Saving is key. Why don't people save? It's easier not to save. So who are your customers? Why do they buy from you? That's where it starts off to get a target market. I can tell you, I did not always do this. I did not always focus on having this target. What are their characteristics? Which ones bring in the most money? For you generalists, I will tell you, as you start to look at your book, if you have no clients, who do you like to talk to? Who do you like to socialize with? So it doesn't mean more than 50% of my business comes from the target, but it does mean I can focus. What's the process? The first part's the main thing, is brainstorm with the other producers, if it's just you, brainstorm with your key staff about what you're looking for, who you're looking for. Once you identify them, we're going to look to connect with them. How do we connect? Through marketing, the target marketing, and then constantly refine what it is that you're doing. I'm not really into the details of all this. I think really it happens automatically. But if I'm trying to educate and show you what target marketing does, is it allows you to focus your marketing dollars and brand your message on a specific market that is more likely to buy from you. It's much more affordable, it's more efficient and effective way to reach potential clients and, more importantly, generate business. Where does most new business come from? I think we heard referrals. When somebody's referring JP to a new client, does that person typically have similar characteristics to his existing client? Perhaps those are the people that JP works and understands what they're doing. So if I'm talking to somebody in the oil and gas business, they talk the same things. Their issues are the same thing. The price of oil, the going up, going down. What is the future of their particular industry? And if they feel that I understand that, then we can connect. What about real estate issues? What about small business owners, tax issues? Whatever that is, how do you connect? If you like athletes, what's going on in the athletic world? Dancers, what entertainment field? We got to study where do these things come from so that we can figure out this target market. So step one, if you go around, and there's no particular order. Y'all recognize that? Who's here from the north? Who's here from the east? Identify where do you want to be. Does that make sense? As you look at the geography, you can start figuring out who the people are in the different areas of your country. If you want to work internationally, then learn about the areas that you might want to do that. But we can dig deeper. It takes time to create the perfect list and start to work on it. What does this say? It's the average income. Because if you end up saying, I like to work with stay-at-home moms, or I like to work with small business, or I like to work with doctors, are those target markets? Are they good? They're broad. They're way too broad. But if you said, no, I want to work with doctors that make over $200,000 a year. Now you're narrowing it down. I want to work with stay-at-home moms that might have husbands that make $200,000 a year. I don't know. It's important for me when I'm looking at prospects and people that I want to talk about insurance is they have a family. It's a lot easier for me. That doesn't mean I won't talk to single people. Single people just have different needs. So the faster I can pivot, that's why I said that's not 100% of the business is the target market, but it's an important part for me to focus. So I believe income. So when you have a person's address, can you not tell what area of town they live in? So if you want to focus on a particular area of town, you can put ads in articles in that part of town, and that's how you focus. What's the next category? Demographics. What are demographics? What's an age group that you're comfortable talking to? Now, I will tell you, when my dad said, don't talk to the seed, talk to the tree, that was not comfortable. They were old. I'm that age now. I'm still not old. What gender do you work better with? So if you just feel that it's easier to say, I only want to work with males 35 and older that make $100,000 a year, now you're starting to narrow it down. Family size, occupation, education. Those are the demographics that if you can focus on a particular demographic, then you'll start to figure out who you want to market to. It's English, so hopefully you can get these areas, but this is another area that aside from demographics, we get into the sociographics. I can tell you, Generation X thinks very differently than Generation Y, very differently than the tweeners, the millennials, the baby boomers. We were talking about that last night, how the people react differently. How many millennials in this room? Love being told what to do, right? Not so much. So how you communicate, if you can give the same similar message over and over again, it becomes comfortable. If you're running similar illustrations because the needs are similar, then it becomes more efficient for yourself, or when you hire people to do illustrations for you, the target marketing just brings on the efficiency that helps with profitability. Behavior. What motivates? What motivates you? Is it money? Is it the helping people? What is it that you want to do? I think if you do this business the right way, you'll make money. But that's about the caring. That's the behavior. That's what I'm typically seeking. Psychographics really get more into the details. The point is, I don't really like getting into the details. I know innately when I'm talking with my staff or friends that can help guide me, the mentors that I have. These are really the things that will help you sit down, start listing out. But the starting is what? Look at your existing people. Because even if you said, no, I'm a generalist, I don't like this thing, you'll start to see a pattern in your own book. Your target marketing, whether you think you are, and can you expand on it? Because there is too broad, there's also too narrow. There's a young man that works in my office, and it took him a while, but he's from Mexico, and he made a really nice sale. And when he's struggling, I say, why don't you go back and look at the demographics of the people that you have sold? Tell me about the biggest sale you made. And he said, well, number one, he's gay. I said, okay. What else? He's from Argentina. I said, okay. He said he's Jewish. I said, this is a hard target market to find every gay Jewish Argentinian out there. But you see how it develops. And so, and keep in mind, we live in Houston. So I don't know how big that target market is in Houston, Texas. But that's how we started to help him figure out who to focus on. So all of these characteristics are very important. Ethnicity is another big thing. This happens to be my target market. These are who I focus in on. So what do you have here? About 30 years ago, I met a woman at MDRT. She happened to come into Houston to speak, and she was a specialist in special needs. What is a special... Go back. What is target marketing in special needs? Does anybody here have family members? Let me tell you, it's an excellent target market if you have passion for that special needs. It is a market that needs our product. If somebody needs money for long-term care or a child that will never be able to work independently, they certainly need what you do. But certainly I will tell you that if they feel you're trying to take advantage and sell that product just because of the marketing, it doesn't work. As I looked into that special needs field, there's several different special needs. Is that physical needs? Is it the mentally ill? Are there children that have Down syndrome, autism? There are so many differences. But I will tell you what's in common. In the United States, special needs are left up to each individual state that determines what kind of money might be available to people in those situations. So learning the knowledge to be able to help somebody who does not know how to navigate. It can be somebody that we started to focus on that was in accidents and had brain injuries. What happens from a money? What happens? How do they access government resources? So as a specialist, we can help navigate them. It also leads to the sale of the products, because what happens if a death occurs? Who's going to provide money to those people that cannot earn that living anymore? So the special needs target became important to me. Within there, I can tell you that there was one target group I'm not comfortable working with, and that was the mentally challenged. Why was that? I did some speaking for the mentally challenged in Houston, Texas, and there were a lot of organizations, which is another reason to target market. When you're target marketing, groups have associations. Look for speaking opportunities in front of those groups. So in the case of the mentally ill in Houston, there were over 12 different organizations to speak to. But I found it very challenging because depending on a disability depends on how other families react. And I found it a little more challenging than I liked that family members of people that are just mentally ill, mean, angry, they don't want to really help out so much. And I just figured, okay, that's not something I have to do. The nice part about target marketing is you can pick, you can choose how you design it. Another area happens to be small business. Now, for me, there's a specific area of small business. That in the United States, we have private retirement plans, similar like you have with PGBL or VGBL. We have 401k. I'm an expert in 401k. I'm an expert in the rules. I'm an expert in the documentation. I can talk the talk with anybody, whether it's the business owner, the office manager, the human resource manager, whoever is concerned about their retirement plan. I know how they work. I know what the issues are. Why do I like small businesses? There's big businesses that also have the 401k. I find there's too much competition. Everyone wants the big plans. So I said, I'll take the small plans. And I've been very successful in getting small plans. Now, I had to define small. To me, I just picked a number under 100 employees. Does that mean I only have plans under 100? No, I have several over 100. But under 100, just to throw out one name, there is a company in Houston that is in the zinc business that happens to be owned by Matthias Vodo. What's the name of that? Matthias Vodorantim? Vodorantim. They have business in America. They're my client. That was pretty good. But they're a small company in Houston, but it was a great connection for Brazil. What's another group that I like to talk to? Oh, and why small business also? I will tell you, businesses have employees. When I do the retirement plan for the company, all of those employees become a target market. If there's 30 employees, there's 30 people to talk to. So we're looking for names. How do you get names? If you can get one business client, then you might have 15 names, 30 names. How does that work? And so it's building this tree that will grow and becoming specialists in that target market. Why do I have this picture? It's the only thing I could find that represents a gastroenterologist, a stomach doctor. Why? When I was looking at my business, I saw, I have several gastroenterologist clients. What happens if the parent dies? Do you still want that wedding? Do you still want them to go to college, and are you still going to leave money to pay for it? If those answers are yes, then I like that marketplace. But I'll tell you what, they're also tough. They're tough clients. One of their expectations is they don't come to my office. They expect that I go see them when they're not working. They're doctors. They do feel like their time is more important than mine. I don't always like it, but I do it. And I like them. But I just have not been successful saying, hey, I'm not coming out to you. They say, yes, you will. And yes, I do. I mentioned the marketing. If you can target market, your message doesn't have to change. So one of the physician clients that I have was doing an advertisement for themselves, and they wanted someone to advertise. So what do I talk about? I'm an expert in retirement plans. That particular client is a retirement plan client. So we just like to talk about what we do. But I'm not putting that ad in everybody's periodical that asks. I will focus on the target market because I don't want to overspend and put this ad where people may or may not care. In a minute, I'll talk about the mountain. We saw it a little bit ago, kind of about stair steps in JP's presentation. But the mountain is something that where I focus on retirement income planning. So similar, but the main thing is, how do I want to position marketing? Now, I will also tell you, I mentioned my dad who's 90. We've worked together for a long time. He didn't like my ads. He did his own. He says, people won't look at that picture and know what you're talking about. Put in words. I said, I don't think people look at words. So however you want to advertise, what he wanted to stress, at that point in time, he had been helping this client for 61 years. That was pretty cool. So there's my dad. I think one of the most important parts of this message is you can mold your career around your lifestyle. If you're a surfer and you like the outdoors, target market, outdoor shops. If people got the time to surf, maybe they've got money or whatever hobbies they have to solve problems that you can bring to their attention. But too often, we're trying to make our lifestyle around our career, and you might not be happy. So make some changes like that, and that's kind of the point about target marketing. Have a purpose. Know what you're doing. Any questions that people might want to bring on that, we can talk about that. But that was one part of the thing that they asked me to address is, where do we get these clients? How do we close sales? Who do we talk to? And as it was brought up today, I thought this was perfect as people said names. So I hope that helps you start to narrow your focus, because you can call yourself a salesperson. You can call yourself a consultant. If nobody's calling or talking to you, it doesn't matter. You still have to close the sale. If you're not talking to people. And so the people in my office, too often, I will get on them and I'll say, you're too busy getting ready to get ready. What does that mean? They're working on the list. They're not making the calls. So this talk isn't about marketing processes, but just know you got to pick up the phone. You've got to ask people to do things. If you don't call, they're not going to call. At least in my case, they don't call me. They don't look at that ad and call. So the key was when that doctor's group asked me if I will put that ad in their advertisement book, the main question I said is, do I get a copy of the distribution list? And the answer was yes. Guess what? It was all doctors. That's where they were putting their advertisement in. I looked up who are the gastroenterologists in there. Who are the Indian doctors? Because the other thing that makes it very easy is we have a lot more tools now. Once I had a list of those names, what would you do with them? Who here is on LinkedIn? Anybody? What do you do with it? Are you on LinkedIn or do you use LinkedIn? Using it means look up those names that I just got and see if there's a connection. And if there's a connection, that's what you do when you call. Mention those connections, because ultimately, what was the second step after the names? You got to make the contact and then do the fact finding. So is this helpful? That's target marketing. What's another step? Position yourself. Like I said, you can be a salesperson. That's cool. You can be a consultant. That's cool. Which one do you want to be? I know successful life insurance people that's all they say they do. They just talk about life insurance. They don't want to get into different areas of planning and consulting. How do you want to position yourself is key. I would tell you it's the first thing that you should do with your prospective client. Don't start positioning your product. It's not whether you have the best life insurance policy, you represent the best company, the best disability contract. If they're talking to you, they're going to assume you can get them the best product. Who are you? Why should they do business with you? So this is something that I show this to clients. I want to know, what do they want from me? How do you position your advice? Product sales, how much do you need to know? And it goes across the chart. The depth gets bigger when you start to get into more planning. I think most of us overcharge for investment products. The product doesn't cost that much when it comes to selling a mutual fund or a stock. The advice is what's worth the money. How do you position that? Because most people, I think, are overcharging. I will undercharge for the product, but then let them know what other areas they might want to get into with me. Because if they put some money in a mutual fund and expect that I will meet with them every 3 months and drive out to their home and visit with them, that's likely not going to happen. Alternatively, if they buy a mutual fund and they want to see, is the mutual fund keeping up with what we projected? Is the mutual fund going to have enough money for the college education that they're saving for? Is it going up too fast or down too fast? Is it too volatile? How is it working with their plan? Well, then that's different. That means they need a plan. How do you get somebody to do a plan? That's fee-based business. That's no longer the commission. But I want to position myself in the very beginning of the relationship. We can do needs analysis, and I don't charge a fee. How much life insurance do you need? How much disability insurance do you need? when you get to your projected retirement age, how much money do you need? And we can come up with a number to start saving. But when it gets into how well is your plan keeping up with the products that you have, then that's a different story. That changes the frequency of contacts and how in-depth we get. But I like talking about the mountain. I didn't always have this. This was actually somebody else's ideas, which is why we go to the MDRTs and try to learn from each other. It's why it's so important that I'm even here today, because when the people were talking, I was taking notes. It's not, oh, I've been doing this for 33 years, I don't need to listen. As Igor said, man, if you're not learning, if you're not growing, then it doesn't matter. So everybody's got this message, but what's the mountain? I asked people, I said, look, if you were going to climb a mountain, what's the objective? Getting to the top? Is it? What's the objective? If I asked you, are you to climb a mountain, what's your objective? Get to the top? Not really. It's getting up to the top and then making it back down safely. So if you were going to climb a mountain for the first time, would you hire a guide? Maybe it's a good idea. If the guide said, well, I can get you up to the top, but I don't take you back down, would you hire that guide? I've heard Sherpas comment that they should pay one price going up and double getting down. And guess what? Going up the mountain, that's what I tell people, that's your accumulation phase. Going down the mountain, that's when you're spending the money. And the name of the financial mountain is not running out of money while you're still on the mountain. I find it's the simplest story I can tell, and people relate to that mountain story. Who's on your mountain? Who's on your client's mountain? Everybody's different. And that's why I love what I do. Because it's getting to know somebody intimately from a target market. It might be similar, but it's not exactly the same. So I was talking to a person last week, actually, and he said, look, he's got money that he's been saving. He makes a good living. He's got 2 grown children. He's not worried about their education. So everything was fine. But I said, well, who else is on your mountain? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, anyone else you take care of? He said, oh, funny you say that. My mother is on my mountain. I have to give her $800 to $1,000 a month to help support her. I said, do you have siblings? He said, yeah, but they don't help. He said, I also have a special needs brother. Oh. So all of his financial issues were not as simple as he started it off. He started off the whole conversation that he didn't really think he wanted to talk to me or needed to talk to me. But when we started talking about who are the beneficiaries of his existing life insurance, who's the beneficiary of his company private retirement plan, who do you think would be his beneficiary? It's his wife. That's okay. But I said, if something happens to you, is your wife going to take care of your mother? Is your wife going to take care of your brother? Do you really have enough money if you pass away? They're on your mountain. What do you do? And guess what? If you're going on that journey to travel the mountain, when do you pack your bags? You pack your bags before you go. If you don't take enough rope and you get to the top of the mountain and you're coming down and you don't have enough rope, what do? So the time to pack and pack perfectly is as you're starting the journey. You can't get the life insurance if you're already sick. You can't start getting compound interest when you're going down the mountain. And the mountain journey is a long time. I talk to people 65, 70, 75 years old now. My target market, I typically want to talk to people 55 and older. It might even be older than that. What I really look for is I want successful people that's children are done with college. College education is expensive. I like to meet them right when their children are done with college. Why? They're done spending a lot of money for college. If they've been spending money to the university, now what are they going to do with that same money? They've already shown they can spend it. So now let's reposition that. Because I can also tell you, when I talk to people whose kids are right before college, do they feel like they have money? I don't think so. I also can't make the assumption. Sometimes I said, oh, great, I want to talk to you. Your children are now done with college. And then I find out they borrowed the money for their children to go to college. They got more debt now than they had before. So all those things are to be aware of. But helping people with that journey, there's a lot of details to know. That's the simple picture. It does get a little more complicated. What are the different stages? What are the products that you need going up the mountain? Those products are different. We're worried about rates of return, how to grow money, because people think that if they get to the top of the mountain with as much money as they can, then that will help them get down the mountain. But it's different. Working with retirees, if that's your target market, know how money works when you're spending money. Those of you with the financial background. The problem for me is I like the technical. I like explaining the technical. But then I do have just to teach them that you need protection strategies going up and going down. A simple idea without the mountain was my dad and my dad's planning. And when he turned 65 years old, he had money in a pension plan. The pension plan is something that would provide monthly income if he chose that option, like an annuity income. But he could have also taken a distribution as a lump sum. Just take the money. There was $1 million. The safe withdrawal rate, if you're not familiar with that, the safe withdrawal rate, how much can a retiree feel comfortable spending on principal every year, is less than 4%. So on that $1 million, my dad knew he should only spend approximately $40,000 a year. If he was concerned about investment risk, put it in the bank. Don't take any risk. But if he lives 25 years times 4, he will spend 100% of his money. Right? Well, I already told you he's about to turn 90. That's 25 years. If he dies on the mountain with that money, it's okay. But he's pushing that number. So his second option was to take this annuity income, but they told him that they will pay him, instead of $40,000, he cannot take the $1 million. They would pay him $80,000 a year, guaranteed for the rest of his life. He liked that. He said, well, 80 guaranteed is better than 40 maybe. Even though he still had control of the money, even though he could still invest it, even though that was his background. Who didn't like that option? I haven't talked much about my mother. My mom said, well, guaranteed for whose life? And the answer is guaranteed for Dad's life. She said, well, what if he dies? She said, it's done. She says, I do not like that option. So they said there's a third option. What's the third option? They will pay both $65,000 a year. If Dad dies, Mom, you still get $65,000. She said, okay. Vice versa. If Mom dies, Dad, you still get $65,000. Those are people's options. Those are your clients' options. What are you going to do when you get to the top of the mountain? How are you going to spend the money? So what do you think my dad did? One, keep the money and spend it and hope it lasts. Take $80,000 a year based on his life, or $65,000 based on my mom's life and his. What would you do? Anybody? Everybody says option 3, right? My dad took option number 2. And people say, you're kidding. So no, he really did. So they say, well, number 1, especially younger people, they say, well, that's stupid. What if he died in the second year? He would have only gotten back $160,000 of his $1 million. And when they asked him that, he said, 160 is more than if he had taken 65 times 2, so 160 is better than 130, and certainly more than 80. They said, you don't care about your wife. And he said, no, I care, and he loves my mother greatly. When he was down on the mountain, what did he do? He bought $1 million of permanent whole life insurance and told my mother, look, we're going to spend $80,000 as long as I'm here. When I die, you will get your own $1 million, and you can do whatever you want with it. She can get her own pension. How do you pack your bags when you're starting the journey? The decisions that you make later are impacted by the decisions that you made earlier. She was comfortable with that. And guess what? He's now almost 90. He won. My dad says, why don't you plan what if you live? Plan for life expectancy, because you cannot out-invest longevity. People are needing money to last longer and longer and longer. How do you do that? How do you make sure you don't run out? Because I had another client, mid-70s, they did not have very much money, and I was worried they were going to run out of money. I like talking about income planning. I suggested that they take whatever, not a great deal that they have, and buy a joint annuity for both of them because they didn't have any life insurance. They said they didn't want to do that. Why? Because when we both die, there's nothing that's left for the kids. I said, well, what if you live? They said, no. We're good. The couple's still a client. They halfway, a few years ago, they bought an annuity with what little money they had left. They're running out of money. Their kids are trying to help support their parents. Those decisions that they make, that they thought they were going to help their kids by leaving them money, if you don't have any money left because you outlive it, those decisions are things that you can talk to people about. All I do is tell the stories. Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be A, B, or C? And let them make the decision. But talking about the mountain to me has been very helpful. Whether I'm talking to companies or people like my parents, I'm worried about security. I start with why. Why do I do what we do? Because I care about helping people take responsibility for their financial future. Why do you do what you do? Start with why. If I'm trying to help a company, companies don't want to spend money on employee benefits. I don't know if that's different here, but in the United States, they try to put in less. What I've learned to try to teach the company decision makers is if they don't invest in their employees, if they don't put in programs that will help them, then their employees won't have enough money to retire. What does that mean? It means the company's going to have older employees that don't want to leave. Are older employees more expensive or less expensive? Their salaries are higher, their expectations are more, their sick time starts going up more, and their health care costs are more. So I've learned, how do you position these programs that you're trying to help implement to help people? And I find that very good. So that's a little bit about, good timing, right? That's a little bit about positioning yourself and target marketing. I'd love an opportunity, if you have any questions, we can address them. Somebody sent me this, and they knew I always talk about the mountain, so I just threw this on as a slide. But it says, in this life, we're all just walking up the mountain. And we can sing as we climb, or we can complain about our sore feet. Whichever we choose, we still got to do the hike. I decided a long time ago, I like singing, or singing made a lot more sense to me. So I want clients that can sing going up, they can sing going down, and that's how I want to live this insurance life in my professional career. Pieces about just trying to position myself. This is where, if they want contact information, whether people that are working for me, I'm in here as talking about the retirement plans. If people want to talk about income protection, we're there to talk about that as well. So what do you want to position yourself doing? How do you want to position yourself with your clients, with your colleagues, and how do you target market? How do you get the names of the people that you want to help? I believe that that's what it's all about. Selling money to the right people that fit you, because you're just trying to help, right? I appreciate being here. I appreciate being amongst some of the top people. I hope many of you will find yourself in Miami for the annual MDRT meeting. I hope many of you will find yourselves in Sydney for the global. I've never been to Australia, and I've found it a great time to go. I hope many of you will be in Austin, Texas, not far from me, for the top of the table meeting. I saw Tiago was sitting there with his foot crossed, and underneath his shoe, do you know what's on the sole of his shoe? Literally, right here, engraved on his shoe. It's the MDRT logo. I've never seen that in my life. He's got the MDRT logo right on his shoe. However, I feel very strongly he's going to have to get new shoes, because they say court of the table. So when he makes top of the table, the shoes will no longer be appropriate. So I'm looking forward to your new shoes. Take a look at his shoes. Get your own pair. Don't walk in his shoes. Walk in your own. Have a good journey, and thank you for allowing me to present to you today.